Okay, today is April 2nd, Tuesday, April 2nd at 6 o'clock p.m. And we're starting the technology committee meeting here. And we have with us tonight Scott Matz, Tracy Drayhouse, Julia Olson, Dr. Brett Cooper, and Rob Hurley, and Kevin Strobel.
Dive right in. You want us to dive right in?
Yes.
All right. So going down the list in order, under the 2019-2020 budget update, no changes on the E-rate equipment. That continues to remain as we reported out. We're waiting on the feds to get back to us with the official approval.
Are we still at the one?
Yeah, 191. Yep.
Yeah.
Typically, that is just a formality, but again, until we have that approval
Yep.
in hand, we're not going to count it as received. Under the end user equipment, so that would be our equipment for the students, for employees, laptops, desktops, that sort of thing. So we work with Dell, again, under the heading of a lease agreement. And what we are looking at overall with that is essentially being able to reduce the budget about $180,000 to $190,000 based on the lease agreement. That includes a mix of Chromebooks, laptops, and desktops, and it also includes the iPads for the primary center. That would be a separate agreement with Apple for all 4 years, 4-year agreement.
What was the number again?
For the reduction of $180,000 to $190,000 is what we're looking at. With the lease, it comes out to about $230,000 for this year.
Okay.
What the total amount would be. And again, all our 4-year leases, that's what we're looking to get everything on just the current cycle for 4 years.
Right, and that way
iPad, Chromebook, Windows.
Got a little bit more of a steady expense.
Correct. Interesting of note in that order, we continue to transition away from Windows devices, Chromebooks being the replacement, it's not an iPad. The teachers have responded favorably to Chromebooks. On average, that's a $150 to a $200 savings per device. So that not only from a service standpoint, they responded favorably to them, but from a fiscal standpoint, it's been a great piece of hardware to adopt for us, as much as that to say for Chrome. But
You think it's like a $200?
yeah, correct.
Wow, that's great.
And again, from the overall user experience, we're not waiting for those boot up times to log in for a full OS to load. The majority of our activities are internet based, so the Chromebook fits in right in that circle that they can log in, hit an internet browser, and away they go to their respective websites or general document creation occurring, Google Docs and everything else like that. So it's been great. And on our end, similar to the iPads, the setup is minimal.
Right.
It's log in and that's about it. It's not
Right.
A standard setup of a Windows device, so that's been great for us as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
Did you find any deficiencies whatsoever in terms of like programs that don't work with it? I know you have parallels and some other things, and we run into that in our business sometimes. I just wondered if, because it's mostly 90%, 95% internet based?
So right now it's basically the higher end program. So in our architecture classes like AutoCAD, that's still a local program and that's still Windows. Adobe products for Photoshop and Illustrator, again, they're coming out with apps and some web-based utilities, but they're not as full-featured yet for us.
Yeah, but isn't Mac always been a little bit more graphically user interface better anyway? I mean, all the graphic artists are using that that we interface with, and so they might as well get used to that.
Correct.
Oh, great. That's awesome.
But we've been pleased with the number of things that have gone web-based, and that's reflective even in our daily lives. Everything's going more internet-based.
So the internet goes down, everybody.
Yes. And that will be a topic of discussion when we get later on.
Yeah.
So that'll be a nice little segue for that line. Any questions on that for the end user? And then, Kevin, does that take care of item E? Was that what you were looking for the laptop and desktop computer?
Yeah, my notes are sitting on my printer. So I'm going off of these. Yes, that's exactly what I was looking for.
Okay.
Yep. And that was just an update that you had mentioned in the previous one that we talked about. So.
My goal is to fine-tune those numbers as the final product and in may then bring all those lease agreements forward to you so we can get them approved in time
Great.
for purchasing and everything.
Yeah, the whole lease idea and getting everything balanced out, less printers that you've talked about, things of that nature are going to help drive our costs down to allow us to do, again, some's going to transfer to better technology, and some's going to be, at savings. But overall, I think it's just wonderful approach to being able to balance things out so we have a more, it's never going to be completely level, but a more leveled approach to certain areas that you can. So it's great stuff. Thank you. Good job.
Item C, innovation grants. This is something I picked around internally for a little bit, and I felt this year was a year to bring it forth. A couple districts do this, and it's really as a way for our teachers to test out things in a managed environment. So what we're looking for is a grant-type program facilitated by the district. My recommendation would be $5,000 per building, and then a $10,000, basically, I don't want to call it a slush fund, but a buffer to be able to account for if something comes in a little bit higher, lower. We want to fund something outside of the deadlines that we'll set forth with this program. But the goal being teachers would apply for the money, laying out an innovative program. It could be hardware, it could be software, it could be a combination of the two, that they could test out in their classroom with their team, in their department area. Any number of ways people could engage this program. And then there'd be a reporting and accountability component to it that they'd have to report back as part of the grant process. We'll ask them for some measurable data that we could use to facilitate the review process with us, and then ultimately provide a report back to our department and a team that will be established on the use of it, and whether it's something that could expand then to a grade level, to the entire district, or it, quite honestly, it could just be something that that was great, but it's not something we need to grow throughout the district.
Or a niche.
Correct.
And the selection process? I mean, I'm sure you're going to present a selection process.
Yep, so it would be a rubric basis to evaluate the grants, and then we'd have a team of
and the grants come from us, come from the school district.
Yep.
Okay, I didn't know, when you said grants, I wasn't sure if it was an outside project.
Oh, no, it'd be,
It's an in-house grant.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, correct. Grant from the school district down to the teachers.
And this, when you take a look at the direction we're headed with, and this is on our curriculum instruction committee, really the differentiated supervision model and providing some flexibility for our professional staff on how we evaluate them in a 3-year rotation, clinical, differentiated. This would be something that could support a teacher who wants to go down that differentiated class path, and take a risk on something from an educational, technological standpoint that's going to benefit the kids, and kind of use some of that money.
Right.
And
When you win, sometimes you're a hero, and when you stumble or it doesn't work, outside of this area, you could be deemed, oh, that was a mistake. How they get picked out. I love the innovation. I don't think great things happen unless you try something dynamically different in a different path. You just never know where that star is going to be. So I like that stuff. So.
The standpoint of our kids, we ask our kids to step out of a comfort zone every day.
Right.
Also, so
Right.
If we're modeling those types of behaviors too, from a professional standpoint, that it's okay, to step outside, take some of those risks,
Right.
and step out of our comfort zones as professionals. When we're asking them to do it, it's a little bit more powerful for them.
Absolutely, and I'm sure as you grow this idea with a rubric and different things, it's a little bit easier to present it to the board and say, here's the dollars, here's how it's going to get presented, here's how it gets selected, here's the reporting capacity back, and whatever it comes back at, some's better than none, right? Or it might be an all situation. I don't know. How do you feel about that, Julie? Do you like these kind of things?
I think it's a good idea. There's we've had a lot of talk about like what we need to from as you said, from the curriculum standpoint, that we need to have some standardization, and bringing everybody all in line, and that's great. But this gives you the opportunity to still have an innovation piece that's still meeting the mission, that maybe doesn't feel financially as much of a risk, which makes it more palatable broadly. So I think that's a great idea.
Well, there's a work Dr. Cooper will bring forward, a full flushed out plan for you.
Yeah, and we're not going to get better unless we try something different. I mean, that's reality, so.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
On the telecommunication provider, we did meet in March. Yes, this is April. Yes, so back in March. And we flushed out a plan moving forward. We identified a couple issues in-house just with some system configuration for a redundancy perspective for our phone lines, primarily this building. When the district was in the Matthew Brook building, we had the phones in that building associated to the high school side of the school district. When admin office moved over here, that same association occurs. So these phones actually route through the high school rather than through the middle school, which is our other phone entry point. We're going to just do some reconfiguration of these phones so they're on this side of the district, and the river basically becomes our natural dividing line.
Oh, will we still be able to keep the phone number for the school district as a 582
yep.
number?
Yeah.
'Cause, I mean, you might not think that's a big deal,
Yeah.
but it, but it's been the same number it's been the same numbers for 20 years.
Yeah,
So-
from the public standpoint, they'll have no idea.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, all behind the scenes, phone numbers stay the same, everything else, they would never know that we did anything different. Once those changes are made, then we'll be going out for the RFP, basically. We don't actually have to do a true formal RFP. I did receive clarification on that.
This is phasing out Windstream to what?
To be determined.
Oh, okay,
To a
so-
SIP
okay.
provider.
Okay, so
There's
this,
three
we're still at that stage.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've identified 3 vendors that we want to engage. They would be Xtel. Oh God, I just blanked on it. It's such a ridiculous thing. I got to go back to my notes.
Yeah,
And
that's fine.
it's gonna irritate. And Ironton, who is a division of Service Electric.
So the meeting that took place, what happened during that meeting? Again,
Basically, what we looked at is the overall system design.
Okay.
And what entry points we could bring in. Because right now, we have 2 entry points for phone service. One at the high school, one at the middle school.
and they're server based there. Are you considering cloud?
They're primarily analog. They're PRIs.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's an
Okay.
actual piece of hardware.
Wow.
In each location. So what we looked at is, can we maintain that same redundancy coming in with any of these solutions? And the answer is yes. Yeah, we had just a little fine tuning, but unequivocally, yes, we can do what we need to.
Are you considering cloud based?
What's that?
Are you considering going cloud based?
No, so ShoreTel is our actual physical phones in our offices.
Okay.
Those are an on-premise solution.
Okay.
I do like maintaining an on-premise solution just because if we did have our internet connection severed, we still maintain internal functionality with them from a calling perspective and that sort of thing.
You have a redundant though, right? You have 2 different.
Yes, correct. So yes, that's 2 locations, the middle school and the high school.
No, I meant like for internet. You have.
No, so that will be a discussion coming. Currently, we have a single line coming
Okay.
into the district.
Because we went cloud based. It was a massive savings.
Yeah.
It really truly was. I mean, but we needed to have that redundant connection. So what we did originally, we split it and said, okay, primarily traffic's going this direction, but we have to pay for this. We might as well split it and make sure that the pipe's not filled, and
More
then
likely,
that helped.
we would, for savings on our end, for the next time our physical hardware comes up.
Hardware comes up, I
That would be
gotcha.
the time.
Okay.
That hardware has a fair amount of life left in
Okay.
it. So we're not really, other than the physical phone service, we're not really paying anything for the internal phone system. But
Gotcha.
yeah, next time a refresh comes up, that would be something to
Yep.
take that.
Can I ask, are we currently in a situation where when people get voicemail, they get emailed to them?
That was just a recent topic of conversation. Our administrators are now receiving a copy of the voicemail to their.
Okay, so, and will that be for every phone number once we go over to this?
We can
System.
enable it. We have.
I just want to make sure that we have enough robustness to our storage and our email system.
So that would be
if
one-
that were the case,
Yeah, that would be the one concern with the migration to Gmail. That becomes a less concerned about space. Right?
I thought that we had talked about like removing limits by creating like cloud storage. So I thought we had dealt with that. I just wanted to be sure because when the state went over to being emailing, because for just to let everybody know, for Right to Know, that becomes a record.
So and
so
Because it's email or because it's voicemail or both?
it's supposed to be no matter what, but yeah, it's supposed to be, I'm just saying, for Right to Know, if you get a voicemail, it's supposed to be record. But once it's emailed to you, that's how you save it, and we had gotten to the point where we're like, oh, now we need to increase the amount of space we have, and it was on like a statewide level. It was a huge amount. So I know we're just one small family here of several thousand people, but so.
But yeah, storage was the one reason, and then actually, the Right to Know was the other process, just because that record then went into our
It all works together,
it
right?
Does, it does.
It's kind of beautiful that way.
Okay. But in any event, yes, we're moving forward with that. We're trying to identify a time we can do those changes here at the admin, limited disruption. Chances are that will be the time frame that wants to take on, and then immediately we'll take out for that process. If you remember, we're not under a yearly agreement with Windstream, it's month to month, so we do have flexibility to kick that, kick that out whenever we want, and then bring in the next provider. I think I've received 5 bankruptcy notices now from them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that they are in Chapter 11, so that was a good time to exit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions on the 2019-20 budget? I'll move into the 5-year overall look.
Okay.
All right. So that I will deliver in a presentation form to you. Let's see what we got here.
I see a light on the top of it. It's in sleep mode, maybe?
There we go.
Yeah, I think so. There you go. Hey, things are happening.
Alrighty. So a quick review just of our current environment, just as a refresher for you. Then we'll dive into some projections for where we're headed. So on the current environment, as far as our infrastructure goes, just a rundown of basically everything that's powering us. So on our production environment, so all the equipment that's in daily use every day. We have 3 virtual hosts, and what that essentially allows us to do is run a bunch of servers within 3 pieces of hardware. Rather than having a couple dozen pieces of hardware in the district, we have those, and then servers exist virtually inside of them. Our storage array, just think of it as a gigantic portable hard drive. It's called a RAID, or a SAN, sorry. We have a single device for storage, about 14 terabytes of storage for the district. And then we have 9 servers that don't fit in that environment. So those are controlling the users signing in, our databases, and those type of things for us. Appliances would be our web filter, our spam filter, our archiving for Right to Know, and our backup solution in that area. We have 355 wireless access points across the district. That's basically 1 per classroom, and then multiple units in like cafeterias, meeting spaces, that sort of thing. We have about 166 switches. That number will be coming down this year after our upgrades. 374 phones. Again, similar concept to the access points, 1 per classroom, and then every office, meeting space, those kind of things. And then we have 28 UPS units, so those are backup batteries in our network closets, in our data center, and that sort of thing. On the disaster recovery side, it's a similar environment that we have 3 virtual host, and what happens is systems running at the high school copy over to the middle school. So if something happens at the high school, we can spin up in a short amount of time at the middle school and keep the majority of the district running. Similarly, that has a storage device housing that. And then we have 2 backup appliances to back up all of our files in the district. Some of them are then offloaded to the cloud, so that would be our financial system and our email system for an additional layer of backup recovery for us. On the end user side, so these are the equipment that our students, our teachers, our office staff are using. We have about 830 desktop computers, 756 laptops, and every year we get closer to switching that balance. And if you throw in Chromebooks, we've switched the balance. So we have more mobile devices than desktop computers. We have 352 Chromebooks. Largely, they are deployed at Amity or at the Intermediate. We have 1,800 iPads, with the bulk of them being associated to the high school one-to-one. The rest of them either in staff hands or at the primary center is our second largest deployment. We have 126 printers. We'll talk about those later. And we have 330 projectors. Again, about 1 per classroom, lots of meeting spaces in that regard. And just a refresher for our anticipated replacement cycle. So we'd like our equipment that our teachers and students are using to be on average 2 to 3 years old, replacing in a 4 to 5 year time frame. So that aligns with our lease expectations of about 4 years. From the network side, again, we'd like most of our network equipment to be about 4 years old, and then we're flat out replacing it every 7 years. And then on our server side, 3 years average age, and we'd like to replace it after 5. Again, depending on our equipment, some of those numbers could go up a year or they could tick down a year, just depending on how frequently or how heavily it's used. So looking forward. So on our end user equipment, looking at estimated costs that I use just for these projections, and again, similar to the replacement schedule, some numbers would be higher, some lower. So an average cost we're using for a desktop would be $650, $625 for a laptop, $350 for an iPad, and $330 for a Chromebook. I can tell you, just within this year, the middle school's technology lab needs to be replaced. They run AutoCAD, so their desktop computers are slightly higher than that $650 number. In just a regular classroom computer, their number is slightly lower than $650. So those are just our average costs. Similar with the iPads. The iPads for the Monocacy cost a little bit more than $350 because we have multiple students use them, so they have more storage. Whereas the high school iPads fall pretty much right smack on that $350.
Can I go ahead? You first.
The iPads in the middle school are going to be multiple users.
They would be similar to the high school. They'd be assigned directly to a student, so we don't need as much storage space on them since it's only one kid utilizing them.
Okay.
If you need, when you say the cost of a laptop, of a desktop or a laptop is in the $600 to $700 range, when those need to be loaded on board with AutoCAD and those things, is that considered instructional materials cost, or is that considered a technology cost?
That falls under my.
It's fallen. Okay.
Yeah, correct. Using AutoCAD actually as an example, that used to be quite costly, and there was a federal initiative, so that is actually free to us now.
Oh, nice.
But
it's not at home.
What's that?
It's not for me to buy for my kid
Oh,
at home.
So,
yeah, okay.
We're quite thrilled with that. But,
yeah, I have to pay once a year now.
but like Adobe Creative Suite, that sort of
Oh,
stuff.
that's nice. So that's for educational.
Yeah.
It's free. That's good.
So, equipment not included as we're looking at these projections. So classroom projectors, they are not on a replacement cycle. That's really as the hardware fails or as features dictate. We've recently refreshed the classroom projectors because they lacked HDMI capability, and Apple TVs and our laptops and different things all needed that, so they've recently been refreshed.
Do you mean this kind of projector, or
That
you
would be
mean
the type of projector in a classroom?
Okay.
Yeah. So otherwise, unless the equipment fails or bulk costs or something dictate, we run them until they die.
I would think depending on whose room they're in, some people use them a lot and some people hardly use them at all, right?
It's a possibility. Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility. They're used, I think, more than ever. Most of our teachers
Oh,
are now
sure.
projecting. Yeah, especially with the one-to-one.
And being able to link, well, when they get the pens.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our biggest challenge is making sure they turn them off, and luckily all these have eco mode by default, so if they sit idle, they turn right off on us.
Do the high school still have smart boards in some of the rooms?
There's a handful of them. but-
Still, and then those are like when they die, we're done with them.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
we'll not
Okay.
replace them
Okay.
in years.
Yeah, I would think not.
Yeah, most prefer the iPad.
Sure.
Because you can move around the room rather than
Right.
staying in front.
Okay.
Apple TVs, the exact same line. We do not replace them on a replacement cycle, and it's just as functionality or equipment failures dictate. The Apple TV is what allows us, it's the little black box on the table there to project the iPads. And lastly, printers, they're just eliminated as equipment fails. Again, for the discussion coming as we move through this, we're not looking to replace those. And just two assumptions made. These numbers do include the 2019 that we just reviewed, and it does assume the middle school one-to-one rollout from an equipment.
It does?
It does assume that. So looking at this, basically these are the numbers as of today. What we'd be looking at for total numbers of desktops, laptops, iPads, and Chromebooks. So you can see this summer, 2019, it's about 1,000 devices, largely driven by the iPad and Chromebook. So while that number's high, it's not a significant workload for us on that front.
And I apologize for not knowing, but Chromebooks are used where?
Amity, or they're slowly replacing anywhere in the district Windows devices. So
Okay.
the middle school opted for Chromebooks rather than Windows laptops for
Right.
little carts that they can roll into classrooms. Similarly, Amity also just opted in for the same thing, that they did not want Windows laptops to roll into classrooms.
Right.
They'll go with the Chromebooks. So you can see how that number pretty well projects out, with 2021 being our lowest year, just as an off-cycle. Really, that'll end up being primarily faculty. Prior to the one-to-one, that would have been a heavy year for desktop computers at the middle school.
Yeah.
But taking into effect the one-to-one the year before, it eliminates the need to replace all those classroom computers, all those lab computers, and that sort of thing. So it creates a low number for that year.
For budgetary purposes, does it make sense to split the iPad and Chromebooks into that 2021 just for the sake of a budget? Just
So
kind of level it out?
the iPad number on 2020, that is the one-to-one. So those would.
The 2021 is what I was talking about. You're looking at 2022 is 1,400, 320.
Oh, yeah.
Does it make sense to split them and flip them over, just from a budget standpoint, to
Yeah.
stuff the money away?
Yeah, you absolutely could. The
Kind of balance it
1,400
out a little bit.
that you see in
No
2022 is the high school one-to-one coming up for refresh.
Mm-hmm.
Apple has given us some guidance that in year 3 is the most valuable year to trade them in if we want to roll over into a new release. So there's potential that number could shift up to 2021.
I was looking just to take it and parking the money, so you're looking at
Oh.
1,300 and, and about whatever the balance is,
Yeah.
kind of split it out between the 2 years, so
Yeah, that would
so
absolutely
it doesn't
be
look
true.
like a,
Yes, absolutely, yeah. From that standpoint, oh yeah.
just a
absolutely.
recommendation.
And so we'll segue right into that. There is a projection of the cost. So yes, you can see that $60,000 in 2021 absolutely squirrel away additional monies to bounce that out, so you have a steady number each year. And then you can see the highlight column at the end is at least what we're moving towards. For reference on the left, the estimated, if we were to continue with the purchase of the equipment, that estimated lease is really just divided by 4.
Are these considered with the trade-in? Again, there's no way to be able to project what that trade-in value is going to be. Is there some number in there thought of, though? Are they?
It seems to vary. I did research that just to see if we could get a hard number, and it all depends on the model and what kind of problems may exist with the model.
Right.
Even with the iPads this summer that we're replacing, I do think there'll be some value for them. But we have 2 different models, and one model they don't want anything to do with because Apple had some issues with it. The other model has like a $20 to $30 per device value to it.
Okay.
So yes, I do think there would be some trade-in value. What that trade-in value, it's almost looking up when you're at that time.
And again, these are stupid ideas, but I'm going to throw them out there anyway. Is there a thought of maybe providing them an opportunity for the public to buy them for maybe a higher value than the trade-in value?
So-
It's going to go back into the school, back into that budget area. I mean, somebody looking for an iPad might pay $100 or $60, which is
Right.
double that value.
On the iPad front, it's not too bad of a
Right,
process.
yeah, PC, I get it. Yeah.
The two concerns when we investigated this previously were, number one, the district does not pay sales tax on the devices. If we
Right.
sold them,
I got
we
you.
have to recoup that sales tax,
Yeah.
which is just a numbers thing. The other concern, and this is more on a Windows device perspective, we can't put Windows on the device because we're not a reseller.
Right.
So we'd have to wipe the device and just provide it to them without
And
OS.
Not,
Just-
both are not worth it. So.
yeah, I was going to say, from a manpower perspective, it didn't work out
Yeah,
for us.
I got you.
Yeah. So just to roll that up for you, what that looks like for a lease cycle projection over the next 4 years until we have all equipment on a lease cycle. The numbers are lower than what a purchase price would be, and then in 2022 we would hit what I would consider to be pretty much our standard operating amount within that range of the approximately 470,000. That would become basically standard every year at that
And
point.
what kicked up 21? Because there wasn't very many devices in 21.
As all the other leases behind it are in
Behind
action.
it start to- okay.
So in 2019, we just have last year's high school iPad lease and this year's lease. In 2020, we'll have 3 years worth of leases.
Right.
In 2020, it's just as they each come online. But again, in 2022, we would be at our full operating, full lease model, just consistently refreshing equipment. Any questions on the end user side before we take a look at the infrastructure? So taking a look at our infrastructure, only made a single assumption, that there's no change to the total number of buildings in the district. And I only do that just because that has been a moving target for us some years. So we're assuming we have hit our peak operating efficiency on that front, at least in terms of tonight.
Don't pick at that scab.
So this one we did, I laid this out more in a timeline fashion. Our infrastructure, given the number of changes that we're making right now, I'll be honest, it is highly variable. I do believe ultimately costs will end up coming down. But between one-to-one, between our Gmail migrations and different things, there's a lot of burden being reduced off of us from a hardware perspective and shifted to the providers as far as cloud storage goes. So as we look at this timeline, I'll call out things that I don't think will come to fruition, but this timeline maps out if nothing changes and we can continue doing what we're doing. So looking at, obviously just this year, 2019, we have the big switch order, that's 42 network switches, and we're also finishing up the rest of our network closets so we have backup power in all of them to sustainability for power outages. And then similarly, Mr. Blankenmiller is working on generator power for those locations should we have an extended period. Our UPSs, we can get about 10, 15 minutes, sometimes 20 out of them, but anything beyond that,
When
it's
that
hard down.
generator kicks in, do they go into a shutdown mode so you save your...
Yes, correct. Yeah, when the generator kicks in, the UPS turns off, it starts charging back up off the generator.
No, I meant like when the generator kicks in, do many of the devices go into what they consider a shutdown mode so you're not losing things?
Because we have the UPSs, they don't know that any
They
power
don't
has
know,
been
okay.
lost. So it's it's pretty, it's none of UPS, it's an uninterruptible power supply, so they don't know any interruption
Right.
to the equipment. Should the UPS,
But you said you get 15 minutes out of most
yeah,
of them?
correct. If we hit that time
Say
frame,
the blips.
that's when the equipment will go into a shutdown mode and start to gracefully shut itself down, so it doesn't have a hard
Right.
out. In 2020, we have 3 domain controllers. Domain controllers are what allow our users to sign in. They authenticate your password and store your user credentials, and 1 file server. And then I have system redundancy there for next summer with an asterisk. And that, Kevin, to your point, that's where we're looking at bringing in a second line. If we're ramping up with the middle school one-to-one, we'll have migrated a number of things to the cloud that our internet connection is becoming very crucial to our operation. So similar to what we did with the phone line, we look to bring in a connection more likely to middle school as well. We would not, I would not recommend a fully redundant line just because, knock on wood, we don't have that many outages, but I would recommend something. I know, as soon as I say it.
Who's your primary source?
So right now we participate in the Berks County Intermediate Unit. There's an internet consortium.
Okay.
Around this time frame, that'll be up for renewal. So typically that is the cheapest route for us. But,
Always,
you know,
yeah.
again, we'll take a look
I didn't know
at
if
that.
it was Service Electric or Comcast or.
So on this redundant line, we would look to engage more likely Service Electric, just to have a separate provider, because then it would come in a totally different path, and it'd just be, you know, a totally different system. So if one
That's not
went down-
bad. They're not bad.
No, they provide our building-to-building connections, and we rarely have any issue, and they're very responsive to us. as
And
well.
they're honestly pretty reasonable.
They are fantastic for the school district.
Yeah.
A number of the county schools are very jealous of our connection.
They're-
The library used them when I was working with the Boone Area Library, and I was surprised at the price. It was
Yeah.
They're
really good.
screaming fast. I mean, I've got 500 megs download per second. I mean, this
Yeah.
is just, I'm 5 times what most businesses are in my house. It's just nuts.
Yep.
So they have an infrastructure that's built in this area that could really
Correct.
take advantage of. So.
Well, and that is the other.
For now, they have the advantage today,
But,
who
but,
knows
they're,
tomorrow?
but they're no Windstream.
So that's where we'll be looking to kind of scope that out and see what our
Right.
overall
So,
costs are.
so you said all things being equal, when the BCIU contract is re-upped or whatever, something really weird would have to happen for us not to continue to be in the consortium, I would
Yeah,
say.
right.
More than likely.
Okay.
I mean, it's a number of school districts, so buying power is greater than ours.
Right.
So unless someone, you know, really wanted to undercut the
Sure.
contract.
Okay.
Other than disruption, because there's no internet, it's inconvenient. Other than that, is there other things you should look at to maybe any additional savings, like maybe voice over IP for our phone systems, things of that nature? Because when you have the redundant backup, it gives you the opportunity to do things like that. Is that a thought process, or is it just main? And again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to be just, mainly that.
Our phone system is currently a voice over IP. We did get rid of the analog system, so that is in
Okay.
place. So it would just provide similarly additional redundancy.
Additional stuff for that, so you're already
Correct.
there, okay.
Correct,
Yeah.
yep. 2021, that's our virtual server environment set and our SQL server. That's really the backbone of our technology operations. That is a great example as we're migrating things to the cloud that may not need to be replaced in its current format. That storage needs, that burden should hopefully be shifted off-site. Similarly, different servers should not necessarily be in-house. So our web server actually, with the website update, that's 3 servers that disappear with that update.
Right.
So that's a prime example of something we'll evaluate when we get to that replacement. And in
Would they
2022,
be AWS servers, things like that?
so that's actually something we're looking
Okay.
at, and I'll talk about it at the end. That's something we're really pursuing for cloud storage capabilities. Yep.
And does that also mean that our email is not going to be off of our own servers anymore? Or?
Our email will be on Google's Gmail server.
Yeah,
Yes,
Right.
correct.
completely. Okay.
Yep. 2022 is an off year for us. It's just a couple network switches and a couple UPS units will be up for replacement. And it's a similar story for 2023 and 2024 as well, with the exception of 2024 being the high school wireless access points that are supporting the one-to-one. They'll be at their 7-year life at 2024. And then in 2025, it's basically everything that we bought last summer back up. So it's all the access points we put in the remainder of the district, a couple switches, and then our firewall will be projected to be replaced in that year, the full circle for us. On the access point front, I do not anticipate any decreases. On the switch front, I suspect we'll have significant decreases there as we switch to either iPad one-to-one or just that continued transition to mobile devices like Chromebooks rather than desktop computers. So looking at this, what does it actually mean from a cost outlook perspective? Same information, just with some numbers for you. With next year being an off year, that's where we're looking to bring in that system redundancy project in there. Again, the asterisk being to be determined. That we'll look at the cost for that project since that would be a new project.
So the big driver for cost, for the larger cost in 2025, is the firewall update?
It's the access points.
Oh, just there are more.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quantity.
Replacement,
Okay.
right?
What's that?
Replacement of them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Got it.
Yep. Yep. So again, the variables that we've been discussing throughout this. So E-rate becomes a variable for us. That program right now is providing 50% cost reimbursement to us for the equipment. I don't know if that program will continue, subject to the whims of the current administration, whoever's in Washington, and also just the FCC's overall outlook. A couple of years ago, E-rate primarily funded phone service and internet service and that sort of thing, and then they made the switch to funding connectivity. So that's where
You mean they reprioritized what they thought was important? Okay.
That's
Oh,
exactly
I get it.
right. Yep,
Okay.
that's exactly correct. So that's where now this networking equipment. So whether they continue down that path, I do not know. The other thing would be we find ourselves now subject to what the government chooses to do as far as tariffs go. A lot of our vendors, when the assumption was the tariffs would go into effect with China in January, they provided guidance as far as how that would affect their equipment pricing. So we find we're at the mercy of those actions as well, one way or the other. System redundancy, again, what we talked about, bringing that in place, that would be a project cost if we move forward with that. And then the last one, IoT, that's the Internet of Things. So that's your web-based cameras. It's Casey's HVAC controls. There are all these little devices that are out there that are on the network. We all have them at home with Alexa or Google Homes and that sort of thing. We continue to have more devices coming on our network than ever before. So depending on the location of those devices, there may be some additional network build out required, particularly anything around Casey's projects. He typically needs equipment where or network connections in places that we haven't necessarily run network to. We don't have children in basements, but he has network equipment down there for HVAC controls.
Right.
So I work with him just to flush out that network. Those would be the variable costs that we'll be still looking at probably for the next couple of years. So rather than just focusing on cost for you, there are cost-saving opportunities for us. It's not all bad news. There is some light for you. The continued reduction in wired clients, that's where we achieve some savings with our network switches, that we would not have to replace them. And then, if you remember, prior to the presentation, a Windows desktop computer is twice as much as a Chromebook, and even a laptop is still a little bit cheaper. So overall, there's multiple fronts that we could achieve savings through the reduction in our desktop computers and switching to mobile devices. So again, projecting out just on switches, ignoring the desktop computer savings, that would be $40,000 to $80,000, if not more. I'm being conservative there. That is just my projection for the middle school. This would transition across the district, so I do believe the savings would be higher overall once we fully eliminate the wire connections that we don't need. Printer reductions and centralized printing. So looking at eliminating printers and going fully with the Follow Me printing, that people have to go up to a print station and release their job at a much higher capacity machine that can do it for less. That would yield, just in hardware savings, $50,000. And again, being conservative there, that's if we were to replace just half of our printer fleet. Currently it's about 126, so I made the assumption of between 60 and 70 devices. If we were to have to replace all those devices, the savings would be even further. And that does not take into account supplies, users, all those savings. And also,
I would imagine then once you implement something like that, there'll be a restriction for the person that says, well, I want a printer in my room, or this is going to be the path. Because this is the only path you have.
Part of our wellness initiative too, where you have to take steps to get there. So we're kind of dovetailing the two together.
Got it.
Circle of life.
It was a good question.
It's all about steps.
Right.
we're not just looking after the budget, we're looking after your health as well.
We had that. We came up with this great savings idea, and everybody still wanted the old idea. It's like, nah, you can't do both.
So if someone's going to have a remote printer, they got to have a really good reason, either educationally or otherwise.
It makes so
that
much
makes
sense to do this. It really does.
One, to make it inconvenient for people, and they'll think twice if they even need to print that job as well. it's easy to spin around from your desk, but
And you know, sometimes you send something to a printer and ask it to print, and you're like, I really didn't need all those pages. Well, you don't release a job, you know, you can send it to the printer, and you can say, no, I don't need that, I made a mistake.
Right.
So it's cost savings on
Instead of
from a
racing for the
supply
little
standpoint
printer.
also.
I mean, we're like, what, a third of, more, like, we only have a quarter of the year left, and I'm finally getting to the point where I'm seeing a reduction in the number of pieces of paper that come home, even though the
Yeah.
kids have an iPad.
yeah.
You know, there are
That's
certain
right.
things where the kids have to work stuff out on paper. I get that, but there is a lot of stuff that I'm like, I don't think you need to print that. And we're finally getting to that point in
E-pencil
class.
where they write on it?
Say that again?
Was it e-pencil where they write on it? The iPad? Is that
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, but the teachers
Yeah.
can't grade them
Yes.
that way.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so they're not doing that yet. But next year,
There's some neat stuff.
Next three things, I don't have specific budget figures associated to them because it's a little harder to project out. So cloud-based email, our migration to Gmail this summer, that reduces the overall storage needs, again, on the district backend. And similarly, on our summer projects here in a second, we're going to do the same type of thing with employee files. Most employees are utilizing Google Drive for their file storage. We're going to just make that finalized at the end of this school year and move on-premise storage to Google Drive so everyone's on the same platform. So what that works out to is more than likely one server we would not have to replace at minimum. So that worked out to a $3,000 to $5,000 savings, but in the overall scheme of things, it keeps adding up.
It does.
And again, the continued migration from Windows to Chrome, there's substantial savings for us with those Chromebooks versus Windows devices. I don't feel we'll be able to truly get away from Windows 100%. There's just some programs, but we can certainly make a pretty solid run at it that we really would need those devices. And as we utilize Gmail, as we utilize Google Drive, it only further drives adoption of that Google platform, which can work on the iPad, on the Chromebook, or the Windows device that's necessary. But by moving to Google Drive, we eliminate that need for the Windows computer to even access the employee's files as well. So it eliminates one barrier for us in that process. Any questions on that? I know it was a lot of information out
No,
and
it's
somewhat
good.
rapid fire. I'm trying to meet your 7:30 deadline.
I know. No, it's good stuff. It
Yeah.
really is.
You know, obviously, I mean, everything discussed here tonight, there are going to be themes throughout our meetings, really.
Right.
as we move forward.
Yeah, no, it's good. It really is. I mean, this is what when you look at trying to look at your budgets and you're trying to forecast out and not being sure what's there tomorrow, having these in every area is going to really make a big difference. It really is. So that's good. Great job. Really. Thank you.
All right. Back to the old-fashioned way, going down the paper agenda. So under the 2019-20 summer project, we basically touched on that. So the email migration is the Gmail migration. We're looking to start that more likely in June would be our kickoff timeframe for that. Communications will start coming out. You guys will actually be just as impacted in that migration as the employees, so we'll see the similar communications coming out as well.
And this is just a question. Do you find that when multiple email addresses on one, especially an Apple device, sometimes can be, they only like one Gmail account?
Depending on, depending on the service provider, some of them only want to have one account of a specific type on it,
Specific type, yeah. That'd be
But,
I guess everybody can do a forward too, so
They
I don't
could.
know if that was a consideration. I think it's a great platform. I really do.
on the Gmail side, you can, for our needs, there's a way to set it up separately. You can do it as it's an IMAP account. Is what
I got you,
it's
okay.
called. You wouldn't have to necessarily worry about the full Gmail account. So
I got
we have plans in place to address those issues if they present themselves. And then the file server migration, again, that's just taking what the teachers know as their H drive, their home drive, and transitioning that to Google Drive. That'll be prior to the end of the year. We want to get that wrapped up before they head off for the summer, so they can come back at the start of the year with everything.
And forget it all.
Exactly. But and the other benefit maybe they appreciate is Google Drive being accessible from any location, so they're not, over the summer. They don't have to be in the district. They don't have to have their laptop.
There is like we've heard of Superman, right? We have
Yeah.
Google Man.
Yeah.
Big G. No, it's a great platform. It really is.
I'd like that stricken from the record.
Didn't mention any names. No, it's a great platform. You're right. It's accessible from everywhere. No servers. The security's great. I mean,
Correct.
it's got everything you need. It's really a wonderful platform.
Yeah, they have a much.
The cost is fantastic.
Oh, yeah, the cost.
So I think it's in line with where a lot of things are trying to. It's cost savings. When you look at it from that perspective, it's just
Absolutely.
what's a server cost you? 35.
What's that?
What's a server cost for?
For email? So for email, it's within that whole virtual environment. That virtual environment is about $50,000 to $60,000 to replace.
Okay. Wow.
So there's not a specific cost necessary for the email server, but it contributes to the overall
Gotcha.
cost for that
Right.
setup. Yep. On the website hosting redesign, so obviously thank you guys for the approval of that back in March. I heard from them actually this morning that kickoff of that should commence next Tuesday with just the fact gathering from us. At that point, then we'll start working on the actual process after that, so we'll have a timeline.
This will be a kickoff next week then.
What's
So
that?
start the process.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So the plan still remains the website would launch over the summer in anticipation for the start of the school year. That's been communicated to them that that's the timeline that we have to hit. So they'll lay out a roadmap for us based off of that deadline. I gave them the first week of August as our time frame.
Right.
On the one-to-one side, as we cruise into the end of the school year, our focus has shifted less on how to get the iPads to students, now how do we get them back. So we're working on a plan with the high school administration to coordinate that with the final exam schedule and all those end-of-year activities. Our plan from the collection standpoint is if a student has lost or damaged their charger, we'll allow them to replace it with an equivalent model charger, so it has to be a 12-watt iPad charger or cable for them. If they so choose not to do that, then it would be replaced with an Apple charger, and they would be on the hook for the fee accordingly.
You're already taking back the senior ones?
Yes, yep. The senior ones return back to us, cycle down to the incoming freshmen.
Can I go ahead?
The senior ones, we're going to take them back. The rest of them, we're going to look at them, make sure
Yep.
everything's there.
Yep.
Is that when you say get them back? I mean, that's the plan. They're going to keep them through the summer.
Yes and no. So if
Okay.
a student, so that's the next part of this. If a student is willing to prepay the insurance, we'd like to be able to issue them back to them for AP work, summer classes, and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So if they prepay, we have the money. If something unfortunate were to happen over the summer, they would be covered within the school year. If they opt not to request it for the summer, it'll be waiting for them in their homeroom at the start of the year.
The last several years, I don't know why I'm leaning into the microphone. It's not even on. But the last couple of years, the administration and Mr. McKnight's team at the high school has released to the parents like a PDF document of this is everything you need to do to leave here, and it includes like what you do if you got overdue library book fines, and if you owe us money for something, and when you got to get your books back, and graduation and event information.
Yep.
That information on the charger, can we make sure that it ends up in that
Oh, yeah,
information?
absolutely.
Because telling the kids is not the same as telling the parents, even if they're 18.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, it's just he
25
already puts
even.
that document out
Right.
like in mid-May, so
Yeah,
you might as well just get it on
In addition
there.
to that, we'll do a separate email on it as well, and yeah, we'll get that information out.
Yeah.
In a couple of different avenues.
Yeah, it's just that that was my Bible that last month of school. So.
Yeah. But yeah, particularly since this is the first year we're going
Right.
through, definitely something we want to over-communicate since there's no routine that anyone's used to yet as far as this goes.
Yeah, but especially including the information that it needs to be a 12-volt cable, because then, because there are ones that aren't good enough, out there.
So, any questions as far as the high school stuff goes? We feel we have a plan that one of the pieces of feedback students had raised, will I get the same device back? with the exception of our freshmen who never had
Yeah.
one. We feel we'll be able to issue that same device back to students. So we hope that'll help them, from a responsibility perspective. They understand if I take care of this device, I'll have that device throughout their career. They don't have to worry about getting a device that wasn't.
And if something's jacked up about it, then it's their fault.
Yeah, exactly.
They
That's
can't
true.
blame the last person who had it because it's them.
Correct.
And the switch from the high school teachers to the middle school teachers, do we have those devices?
We did. So, yep, the perfect segue again.
Okay.
That order is out. We have not received shipping notice.
Okay.
I'm hoping this month we'll have them in, and then that
gotcha.
switch out.
Switch out.
Thank you. Words just went off. Our switch out process will occur in May.
A lot of moving
Good.
pieces going on here. Good job.
A lot of models.
And inventory in itself.
Yep. So Apple feels that timeline is reasonable, but similar to the E-rate, until we get the documentation statement,
Right.
we'll count that as in progress. One-to-one questions? All right. Down through. On the digital document management
I'm sorry, yes. I
storage,
do middle school thought there is then,
What's
just
that?
the teachers are going to go next year. That's
just
it?
the teachers.
Just teachers.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yep.
On the
Sorry.
document storage, trying to bring that one in for a landing now. Statement of work, pretty well finalized as far as expectations with employee records, student records, what that workflow would look like. At the current price is currently $44,000. I had anticipated $40,000. I am pretty much going to lay it down for them to hit that number since we're as close as we are, and that really has been shared with them as of Friday, so I'm waiting for them to come back to us to hit our budget amount. I'm hoping they do not blow an entire project with a couple $1,000s at that point.
Right.
So we remain on target for that project. Otherwise, no differences than what I've shared previously as far as the overall outlook
Right.
for that one.
Yep.
On the student information system migration, that's our migration to Infinite Campus that we shared last month. We are having demonstrations in the middle of this month on the overall functionality of the system, so they'll be demonstrating all the different modules from registration to scheduling to the special ed component side of things. So
So it's like a demo you're going to get?
basically,
Okay.
yep, and they're doing that for the county. I anticipate us breaking out from that and then doing our own deeper dives into the platforms wherever we have questions. They're working on finalized pricing. I'll share with you that we have an initial proposal, but it's not the proposal. It is missing special education costs in it. It also does not have the final training numbers in it, but it was at approximately $39,000 for implementation. I'm hoping this month we'll get that special ed component from them with the implementation, and then final price will also be dependent on any modules we add into the system for functionality. They do have add-on modules for it, again, for online registration, fee collection, that sort of thing. So those will be internal discussions that we have to evaluate
Right.
what the overall project. But just to give you a feel for the direction it's heading for overall process. And then again, that's something we look at, probably trying to get the.
Good feedback coming from the other places that have it?
Yeah, I've had positive
Yeah,
feedback,
yeah.
and I'm hoping for the same thing once we see the demos this month as well.
Right.
But it's not, I'd say it's not something I'm overall nervous about at this point. That we've had good feedback, and I believe as far as the IU's migration plan, I feel comfortable with that. As far as their setup, there's some benefits to it as far as running data concurrently that with any student information process would be, that's where I'd be nervous, and they have some additional features in place that alleviate that burden to some extent as well. So overall, feeling good about it. We'll see how the discussions continue. Similarly, we have one final year of eSchool. We received the proposal for that, so you'll see that proposal for April for our final year of eSchool use. And the price increases, there's 4 components to the eSchool renewal. There's a student cost for the student information system, and then our IEP system, and then there's a maintenance contract fee that covers just the software and that sort of thing. As the IU, they provide guidance. It is up this year. It ranges from a 10 to 18% increase in different areas, and that is largely what drove their conversations for the county to really end the eSchool Plus relationship, because the costs were just becoming unmanageable. And even with those increases, it's an off year for them, that there's some updates they can defer knowing that we'll be on Infinite Campus. Had they hadn't passed along those costs to the district, it would have been even worse. So that it just really, they're correct. It wouldn't have become a sustainable system really for us to engage with any longer. Any questions on the student information side? All right. One item of note also for the April agenda, the commencement ceremony live stream, you'll see that on there for approval. That's the same approval we've had for the last couple of years, just to have the guys come in and live stream our commencement ceremony for grandma, grandpa, whoever can attend. They can attend with us digitally and watch the service. So that's a $1,600 cost for setup, equipment, and running the whole program. That's fully handled by them. So we've been pleased with the overall setup. They do a nice job for us.
Are they the ones that ran the Facebook Live one as well?
Yes.
They did both.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what we ultimately pump it. They record it and then we stream it up to Facebook.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Correct.
Yeah, they did a decent job.
That's great.
And then last thing I have, just kind of the budget update for you. Total budget obviously didn't change. The updated number for spent is approximately $922,884. There is still approximately $64,000 pending, largely e-school, some supplies, their equipment just for collecting the iPad storage containers, that sort of thing.
Invoices out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So with that, the updated ending balance is $210,223, and that still falls in line with that 18% remaining at the end of the year. From our standpoint, unless there's equipment failures or anything like that, we're pretty well done with our hardware spending for the year. So at this point, it's incidentals.
What is the protocol? And again, when you start looking and you start your expenses out and you look at 2022, or you look at, some of these other things that are coming, and then the variable about, what is the protocol in a public and school environment where you can take those overages and slide them towards those things? There are expenses that are coming. And there are going to be increases in certain years. How's that work? Can you accrue that? Can you accrue an expense? I have no idea.
Are you meaning like when we were looking at what the overall budget projected was, averaging it, so then holding $65,000 one year because you're going to have a bigger year next year? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, if you have an overage of, let's just make it 100,000 for easy numbers, and I know that in 2 years from now I'm going to have an increase of 200,000. I could take that money and accrue that as an expense, a forward expense, because we know it's coming. It's going to be an increase, and so it's going to hit us sooner or later. And so, can you forecast that?
I'm sure there are rules as to how much we can hold on to, and for what reasons, and in what accounts we can keep them in. Correct?
It gives you a false read on your budget.
That would be
because it's not a capital expense because we're talking about leasing.
Right.
So that makes it a little harder, right? Right.
But there's an expense coming because the end of lease, it's coming. It's not like the train's not on the track. And again, I'm not arguing in any way, shape, or form. I'm saying because it can throw your end balance at the end of the year. Well, you got $300,000 left over. Well, not really. We've got $250. That's going to spike in year 3 from now. And these are things that kind of help you balance your budget. Again, just more a question than anything else.
And I think that's the whole rationale behind putting out a 5-year plan. So
Correct.
When those peaks and valleys are
coming, right?
And can appropriately budget, in other areas. Robbing Peter to pay Paul, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess like the infrastructure improvement stuff that we're actually purchasing, like the switches and things like that, those could be considered capital improvements. So, you could look at parts of the budget as something where you can do a holdover from year to year, but I don't think you can do that for the leasing.
No.
That's what I thought.
If it's in a capital, because you're...
Do you know what I mean? Like the difference between a capital account,
Yep. It's a hard expense versus a...
Yeah.
You look at your budget and you say, where can we level it out? Because we know the expense is coming. we would often, and again, business versus public school, different, but we would, if I knew there was a $300,000 or a $36 to $100, $360,000 event coming 3 years from now, I could put $10,000 away for the next 36 months. You know what I mean? I could accrue that expense.
I definitely
and
feel-
not have to go, oh
Yeah,
my
no,
gosh,
yeah.
or worse yet, that's, we're killing our.
I definitely
budget.
feel that evening out the technology budget year to year would be beneficial if there were a way to do it that were within the bounds of our reporting and all that stuff. So I don't know, maybe it's an offline conversation to
can't
have
always-
with
you can't
Kathleen
always-
if there are some things to be done.
You can't always stagger your purchase, and so you're going to have that. That's, again, more of a question than anything else.
I can see what the rules are with
Yeah.
Kathleen, but, as we go out, was it 4 years, I think it was? When you start seeing the leases flatten out,
They do.
per year, that's a more sustainable.
Right.
You know what that's going to be, that 4th year, 5th year, 6th year, 7th year,
Right.
and on. It's the replacement costs of some of the hardware.
Right.
Switches and so on and so forth.
And you might be in a situation where we want to push. There was that one year that looked kind of empty when you looked at the leasing. Maybe that would be a year to go heavy on the technology infrastructure
Right,
stuff,
right.
like a little bit more. If we can't hold money over, you know what I mean?
No, great job. Thank you. Excellent.
That's all I have.
Awesome. That's all, right? It was a.
And how do I finish this?
Say what time it is and when
Okay,
that
it's,
we're going to be done.
7:10, and we're finishing the meeting.